It's been a few weeks filled with significant national developments from the arrest, detention, and subsequent release of the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the MPP, Bernard Jubo, also known as Chairman Wontumi, by Yoko, to the closure and reopening of the Ghana Embassy in Washington, D.C. The headlines have been unrelenting. Add to that, the declaration of former Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta as a wanted man by the Office of the Special Prosecutor, along with a string of heated issues unfolding in Parliament. Yesterday, for example, the minority boycotted the passage of some addition to the taxes on petroleum products. Now, we are unpacking it all in one sitting, and my guest is, as always, firebrand Member of Parliament for Damango in the Savannah region, Samuel Jinapor. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Elton. Very good to be here.
Great, great. And you want why the interest in Ablekuma North?
Well, but when elections are conducted, the results of the elections have to be declared, shouldn't they? We have 276 constituencies in Ghana, and 275 of those have been declared. What at all is the reason why Ablekuma North has not been declared 6 clear months after the elections were held? I think we have to have answers to that.
And there's been demands, some say we should have a total rerun. The court hasn't come to such a decision. What is left is some few electoral areas to be added up to what has already been collected, and the declaration is. Do you really need to tell the police to do their work? Because I think that in practice they should be doing that. Nobody should go and ask them to do their work.
Well, I think it's important that we all acknowledge that in a democracy, institutions must work. And if institutions are not up to the task, you will have citizens, groups, and political parties taking measures of their own, which is the last thing we want to have in our country. And therefore, if the Electoral Commission has come out formally to indicate that what they require to be able to bring the Ablekuma North elections to closure,
right,
and some firm conclusion, is protection from the Ghana Police Service. What is preventing the Ghana Police Service from doing that? I mean, I find that whole situation totally bizarre. And I believe the minority, we've taken this position, the position we've taken and the protest, which was waged by the minority, rightly so, today, is essentially to bring to the front burner and to demand and insist that the police are up to task and live up to their responsibility by providing security and protection for the Electoral Commission to discharge its mandate of declaring the results of Ablekuma North. The people of Ablekuma North deserve representation in Parliament. And as we speak today, isn't it totally anomalous and a scandal that there is a whole constituency for 6 months without representation? And
it's difficult to appreciate, because clearly this shouldn't drag to this far.
It certainly shouldn't.
How many polling centers are outstanding that will have to just keep a whole constituency in limbo as who is representing them?
Well, and as it's turning out, I think also that what has become extremely clear is the fact that the victor of that election and the winner of that election is pretty clear. It's quite obvious that the NPP candidate won the election, and the reason why some individuals or groups or political party is made it a point to prevent the collation of the results and the subsequent declaration is because they already know the outcome. And so I think, look, I don't think it's good for our democracy. I don't think it's a good image of the government. The government has a considerable majority in Parliament already. And even if they didn't, let right be right and let justice prevail and let the winner of the elections be declared and declared immediately.
Let's just say in Parliament, yesterday you walked out. Why?
Well, but what is happening in our country? You have a government that said they will have, they protested against e-levy vehemently. They, in fact, not too long ago, when the president opened the National Economic Dialogue, the finance minister said he will not reward the electricity company of Ghana for their inefficiencies with taxes and tariffs. And just weeks and months thereafter, we have been slapped with a levy, which is almost 200% of e-levy. If you look at the impact, the immediate direct impact is going to have on cost of living and on the standard of living of individuals in our country. And this is the case where you cannot even escape it. In the case of e-levy, you only paid when you send money through mobile money.
Right.
In this particular case, whichever way you look at it, the negative impact is going to be on all citizens of our country. So, I mean, I think we're so right to have worked out.
But the justification, they say that they will use this money to address Dumso and then to also help deal with the energy sector debt.
Really? I've also heard comments from officials of the government saying that this has nothing to do with any debt and that this has everything to do with populating the accounts or the funds of the energy sector to be able to keep the lights on. No, I'm not even getting into the matter of Dumso or not, and also whether or not this is required to deal with Dumso. I'm dealing with the principle of cost of living and what the NDC stood for when they were in opposition, what they fought against, e-levy. And not too long after they won elections, the position taken by the finance minister that we should not have additional taxes or tariffs. 6 months down the road, with all that is happening in our country, the cost of living, issues of livelihoods, and so on and so forth, and what the government fought against and stood for, and the commitments they made to bring about relief to the ordinary citizen. And just 6 months, we've had increment in electricity tariffs, water tariffs, and here we have a levy being slapped on the ordinary citizen once again, just 6 months into government. I mean, I think that, that really the principle of it and the fact that there's a clear departure from the promises and commitments which were made to alleviate the sufferings of the Ghanaian.
But by the way, you agree with me, we'll have to find a way to deal with the energy sector debt. According to your brother, as at the last count, we are
according to the energy minister.
According to the energy minister, Jinapor, as at the last count, the debt stood somewhere around 800 billion cedis. Now, the finance minister said that debt alone is enough to collapse the entire economy of this country. And so something ought to be done about it. The majority leader says that basically it is saying that Ghanaians should give 1 cedi each when they buy a liter of fuel so we can end Dumso. Just 1 cedi so we can end Dumso.
Yeah, but the government itself has said that this is not meant to deal with energy sector debt. The government has come out. I heard it. The government has come out formally, officially, to say this levy is not being imposed to deal with debt. And the energy sector recovery levy, ESLA, is already in place, which is what is being curated for dealing with energy sector debt.
Right.
Okay. And the government has said this is not a levy to deal with debt. And of course, when the NPP came into office in 2017, the NPP inherited debt across the government spectrum.
Right.
My fundamental point has nothing to do with Dumso and how it to be dealt with and what is required to deal with it and so on and so forth. My point is the principle of it, the principle of cost of living, the principle of livelihoods of Ghanaian people, the principle of the National Democratic Congress when they were in opposition, the principle which was laid by the finance minister at the National Economic Dialogue, which was held sometime in March.
Right.
And 6 months down the road, this is obviously going to impose a lot of burden on the everyday Ghanaian. That is indeed the point. And the government needs to be speaking. You heard the nurses, talk about their condition of service. And this is just going to exacerbate the cost of living for ordinary Ghanaians. And for me, that is where our attention should be.
In fact, this afternoon, some officials of the GPRTU, last week, they had to reduce fares because of the appreciation of the cedi against the US dollar. Now, if you want to put this in proper context, a liter of fuel, so 5 liters will make 1 gallon. That means every gallon you buy, you are spending 5 cedis more on it because of the stars. And they say that we were asked to reduce fares because of the appreciation of the cedi against the dollar. We did so. Now, you've used another means to impose more taxes on petroleum products. And it is forcing us to go back to the old price.
This is a classic case of robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, it's a classic case. And the issue of the appreciation of the currency is not a constant. We all expect that our currency should be strong. We all hope that our governments will put in place the right measures to keep the Ghanaian cedi strong. I mean, that should be the wish of every Ghanaian. But as we've seen over the years, and as our economic history should teach us, and as is the case in almost all countries in the world, the strength or otherwise of a currency is not constant, but this levy is constant. So even if you reduce fares 2 weeks ago on account of the appreciation of our currency, it may as well be that in 3 months, 6 months down the road, or a year down the road, we don't wish for it, but the currency may depreciate. But this levy will still be in place. So really, the point is the commitment, for me, is the issue. The commitment the government made. Vote for us, we come into office, we will put in place measures which will cushion the Ghanaian. Vote for us, we come into office, we'll put in place measures which will reduce the cost of living. Vote for us, we come into office, we will protect your livelihoods. And 6 months down the road, you have this major levy which is being slapped on the Ghanaian people, which is about 200% e-levy, more than e-levy. And e-levy was said to be a levy which was going to impoverish the Ghanaian people. But what will this do to the Ghanaian people? That's the question we have to ask.
But if this will keep the lights on, then we should welcome it.
We should welcome it. I mean, we all want the lights to be on. There's absolutely no two ways about that. But you still have to answer the question of the commitment to reduce cost of living. Assuming the government brought this in and said, look, we're bringing this in, which will ensure that we keep the lights on. But we recognize that this is going to have a negative impact on cost of living. And therefore, we are taking these other additional measures to cushion you. But that is not the case. You keep the lights on, but then it will still bring a burden on the Ghanaian people, and it will exacerbate the issue of cost of living. And this is a government that said they're coming to deal with cost of living. And 6 months down the road, you are putting in place measures which is going to worsen cost of living in our country. That is a question that we have to ask the government. There's no two ways about that.
All right, so my guest is Samuel Abu Jinapor, and of course your comments are welcome. Now, he's also the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee. So let's spend some time on events within that committee in the last few weeks. First is the decision by governments or by the Foreign Affairs Minister to close down Ghana's embassy in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. But currently, as we speak, the embassy is opened. In your view, was that a prudent decision?
Well, I think everything about that decision is problematic. And I want to believe that if the minister was given another opportunity, he probably would have done this differently. And if you look, Elton, if you look at the time frame between when the mission was closed down and when the mission was reopened, you have to come to the conclusion that the decision was not well thought through, that it was a rash decision, and it was not diplomatically elegant.
Right.
There's absolutely no two ways about that. There is a laid down procedure for the closure, the opening and closure of diplomatic missions across the country, across the world. You first of all have to take the decision, and the decision must be grounded. It must be, first, for example, due to diplomatic rift, security concerns, budgetary constraints, strategic reallocation of resources, and this is governed. Okay, this is governed by international law, the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations.
Right.
So even the decision, there's a laid down grounds on which
an embassy can be closed.
An embassy can be closed on the account of the Vienna Convention. And it is set out clearly that it's either diplomatic rift, security concerns, budgetary constraints, strategic reallocation of resources. I don't know where this particular ground falls within these grounds which has been set out under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations.
But
you have to notify the host country.
Right.
2. 3, you have to coordinate with the host country. 4, you have to have internal preparations. You have to have consular notification. You have to, of course, public announcement, flag lowering, enclosure ceremony, turnover of the premises for the mission, and legal and financial wrap-up. It's a whole laid out 10-point grounds and procedure for the closure of diplomatic.
It is for temporary or permanent closure?
Whichever. If you are going to close down your diplomatic mission, you have to go through these processes. That was not done. Secondly, the grounds on which the closure was announced, as you know, it was because a certain non-foreign service staff, a local contractor, who set up an outfit for courier services and other services relating to visas, okay, and which the ministry had issues with in terms of the propriety of their operations.
Right.
And that, for me, I don't think is a sufficient grounds for closing a diplomatic mission. This person is not even a foreign service officer. This person has come out to even deny flatly of any malfeasance or of any wrongdoing. And as we speak, a competitor organization or a competitor company, an Indian company, which renders the same services, is still ongoing. I mean, nothing has been done to that particular company. That
for the Ghana embassy
in Washington. Yes, an Indian company. I have that on record. So, all put together, we took the view, and by that I mean the minority caucus on the Foreign Affairs Committee took the view that the decision was rushed, and there have been similar incidences in the past. They've been dealt with in a different manner without the brouhaha which was associated with this particular decision. And as a matter of fact, it had far-reaching negative consequences on the reputation of Ghana in the eyes of the Committee of Nations.
But some are saying that the integrity of Ghana's embassy was at stake because of what this person was alleged to be doing.
Yeah, but that, first of all, the person is even denied it. Second of all, the investigation is not being concluded. Thirdly, there are several departments of a mission. You have the Trade Department, you have the Security Department, you have the Investment Promotion Department, you have so many other departments of a mission. You have the Consular Services, you have career foreign service officials who have nothing to do with this particular issue.
And all of them were asked to go home.
Well, then what? Go home. And there's been a complete withdrawal, recall of foreign service officials from the Washington mission to Ghana. And some people are even raising the issue that this may probably be some charade or a ruse in order to realign people at the missions across the world.
Because new set of individuals were sent there.
Yes.
After those working, they were asked to go home.
So the bona fides of that is even being called into question. And the reports we have is that morale among foreign service officials across the world in Ghana's missions is quite low, because these persons who are so dedicated will break their backs for our country. There's a brush which is being used to brush all of them as though they are all criminals, they are all fraudulent, and we think that if the minister wants to have a proper interrogation or overhaul of the operations of our missions across the world, there is a much better way, an elegant way of...
But to deal with the bleeding, I mean, you've come across a situation where an embassy staff may have compromised his position, and
he's not even an embassy staff.
Okay, a local contractor.
Yes.
But he had access to the extent that if he was able to, according to the minister, divert applicants to a certain portal where payments were made, and then the minister didn't know to what extent maybe his activity may have compromised other staff. I mean, the prudent thing for him, according to him, was to get everybody off whilst investigation, are conducted to establish who.
Investigations took 48 hours or so, and the mission was reopened. Clearly, the decision was established to have been rushed and not well thought through. Because if you were going to conduct investigations, it would have taken you a certain number of time. But it wasn't the case in this particular instance. The mission was reopened 48 hours after the closure. Again, this individual or this contractor is contesting all of these claims.
Right.
But that is not even what I'm interested in. I'm not getting into the veracity or otherwise of the claims and counterclaims. I'm concerned about the decision to close down the mission. I think the decision to close down the mission was, the grounds for closing the mission in a country like the United States, an important partner of our country like the United States. I mean, the
minister had the express, backing of the president when he issued that Facebook post.
And within 48 hours, the mission was reopened.
You think there's more to it than what we've been told? I'm wondering whether the minority owners are you've undertaken your own independent probe into this matter.
There are numerous claims as to what is the real motive for this kind of move. And some have even suggested political motives. In other words, they want to recall so many foreign service officials in order to send officials who are, deemed to be aligned or politically correct. I don't want to venture into that space. What I'm saying and what the caucus is saying is that the decision to close down the mission, the grounds for that decision, for us, the grounds did not merit
the kind of action that was taken.
The kind of action that was taken. The announcement of it on Facebook and all of that, and the recall of all the officials from Washington mission and other missions across the world. All of these are matters which does not promote the reputation of Ghana as a respected member of the international community. And therefore, we've even filed an urgent question in Parliament, and we've made a requisition that the minister appears before the committee for us to have a discussion with him
on this matter.
Because we find it very, very, very serious, and we think that it's important that Ghana's foreign policy is conducted in a manner that lifts the flag of Ghana.
And I thought the committee will come together on this matter, but when I heard the chairman of the committee say that the majority, the NDC side of the committee, will undertake a familiarization tour of the embassy in the US, and I asked myself, why not everybody? Why just one side?
Well, I mean, we don't have a difficulty with a familiarization tour, but we think that that is not the important issue on the table today. The important issue on the table when the closure took place, and at the time the respected chairman of the committee, Honorable Oko van der Poy, held a press conference, was that the mission be reopened. Because at the time he held this press conference, the mission was still closed. And our priority was to advocate for the reopening of Ghana's mission in Washington, which was done a day or so after. Now, we don't know the outcome of the investigations. We have to wait for the outcome of the investigations. But we are still also calling on the minister and the ministry to exercise restraint in respect of this recall of foreign service officials and reposting of foreign service officials across board. We think and we have reliable feedback and information that is dampening the morale of Ghana's foreign service officials across the world, and that is a problem.
All right, we'll talk about illegal mining, but let me quickly pick your brains on your Ashanti Regional Chairman spent almost a week in Yoko, custody for whatever. Yoko has yet to form. I mean, you are a lawyer. Yoko as a state entity, as we speak right now, as far as Yoko is concerned, we do not know exactly why Chairman Wontumi was held in their custody for 6 days. I can go with the comments by the Deputy Attorney General that he was being investigated for money laundering and few other matters. But Yoko as an entity has yet to fully tell Ghanaians the reason why it kept Chairman Wontumi in custody for 6 days. When he appeared before CID, a day after the CID of the police issued a statement telling us why they invited him for questioning. First, your take on the detention and then the fact that we are in the dark as to what really is going on as far as the Yoko investigation is concerned.
Well, Elton, it may be difficult to point this out, but clearly what has happened to Chairman Wontumi, and you've been involved in the discourse of our country for a while now, and you may attest to what I'm about to say. It's almost like a circus, okay? It's almost like merry-go-round. In the past, and I will not specify particular administrations, but in the past we've seen people being arrested. When there's a change of government, there are people being arrested and put in detention, and they are either denied bail. In some cases, their rights are even trampled upon, and in other cases, they are given very unreasonable and onerous bail conditions, which makes it difficult to satisfy, and it just go on. And sometimes when you've been in this enterprise for a while, you cannot help but identify that this is the usual show him where power lies, teach him a little lesson, and so on and so forth. We're laughing about it, but it's not a matter it's not a laughable matter. In other words, if we want to build a democracy which is fit for purpose, we must ensure that the rule of law prevails. And we must ensure that right is right, wrong is wrong. And if the rule of law works, and if the law works, and if people's rights are protected, and there are safeguards, take it from me, it works for all of us.
Right.
Because today you are in government, tomorrow you are not in government. And if the law works, the law protects each and every one of us. You know of the story of Adolf Hitler, when in Germany during the Second World War, they arrest this person, they arrest that person, nobody speaks out, and those who don't speak out begin to become victims of that particular regime. So for me, that's how I look at it. if you ask me in all sincerity, and I think that every objective-minded person, I mean, most objective-minded persons will come to the conclusion this was a classic case of teaching Chairman Wontumi a lesson.
Why? Why?
No? Well, why we can get into that another time. But when you look at it all, the whole play, it was obviously the situation of, look, let's teach him a lesson. But it is totally, totally wrong. Because somebody was taught a lesson yesterday, another person was taught a lesson a week ago, or in another administration. Chairman Wontumi, there's supposed to be an attempt to teach him a lesson, and then tomorrow you continue the merry-go-round and you have the circus. That is not how a democracy should function.
So for you, this is a political harassment?
Well, it's you cannot help but come to that conclusion. Look, bail, the grant or denial of bail is anchored on one fundamental principle, which is that when the person is required to appear before the investigator or before a court, a trial court, or before a prosecution, the person will not abscond. The person will indeed appear. Or if the person is released, the person will interfere with investigations or will tamper with evidence and so on and so forth. Bail is not punishment. So you cannot arrest somebody or you cannot have a suspect and keep him in custody as a punishment, because the only institution or the only body that has the right, the legal mandate to met out punishment is the court, is the judiciary.
And some suggest that instead of massing up at the Yoko Air Office, the party should have gone to court to get a court to vary the bail.
But the question,
that was not done.
The question should be
solidarity with
no. With the greatest of respect, the question should be, why should he be detained in the first place? Why was he detained in the first place? Let alone for us to get to the point of bail. Are we saying that Chairman Wontumi will abscond? Are we saying that if Yoko needed him tomorrow or a week or a month after, he will not appear? Are we saying that if charges were to be preferred against him and he was to be put before a court of competent jurisdiction, he will not appear? He will not appear to stand trial? Or are we saying that if he was released, he will interfere with evidence and so on and so forth? So, first of all, when a suspect, somebody is a suspect, and the person is being investigated, the person is not to be detained. Ab initio, simpliciter, the person is not to be detained. The person is detained only when there's sufficient grounds that if Mr. Elton Brobe is released and the investigative body requires his appearance, the person will not be found, or the person will abscond, or the person will bolt. Or that if you release him, he will go and interfere with evidence, or that if you release him, he will commit a further crime. Okay, before you even get to the point of bail. But I'm saying to you that quite regrettably and unfortunately, this also, once again, is another classic case of Ghanaian democracy circles, merry-go-round. We have come into office. Chairman Wontumi said this, he said that, he offended this person, he offended that person. As the account people will say, or something, let's detain him, let's, teach him a little lesson, ruffle him up. Not good for our country, not good for democracy. I'm hoping that in the not too distant future, an MPP government, God willing, will depart from this and come into office and deal with people by the law. When there's a clear, strong evidence of wrongdoing, the people are made to face the full rigors of the law, and done in a manner that their human rights are not trampled upon and not motivated by political considerations. I think that is absolutely important, and it's good for our country.
But Honorable, what is clear is that this matter is not ending anytime soon. It may not be only Wontumi, because from what we are picking, even yesterday, for example, the former member of parliament from Nchia South, Dr. Machopoku Prempe, says that he's been investigated by the NIB and is cooperating with them. President Mahama yesterday says that he received a report from the oral committee. He's received the opinion of from the Attorney General. There are 33 cases that they think that it should go to court and get the people to come and answer for whatever crime that may be established against them. So it looks like the MPP is under some kind of scrutiny because of how you may or may not have conducted yourself in the last 80 years. And government is going on the full throttle to get accountability.
You know, when you serve in government or when you have something to do with government, you have to be prepared to account. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with the government holding ex-officials and even current officials to account for their stewardship. There's totally nothing wrong with that. You know, even in a hotel, when you check into a hotel, before you check out, the receptionist will ask you a few questions.
Right, right.
How much more a government, when you serve as a minister or that and that. All of us have been questioned one way or the other. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think anybody should take...
Under the NDC?
Yes.
Presently?
Absolutely.
They are questioning you?
All of us. Literally all the people who have served under President Akufo-Addo have had some... have gone through some accountability process or the other.
What are they questioning you about?
Well, I'm not talking about myself.
Okay.
I use it in a different sense.
Okay.
But I'm saying, and my point is that there should be nothing wrong with that. I mean, nobody should quarrel with the government that the government is, for example, called me or anybody to ask him or her a question or two about one or two issues. It will even be a dereliction of duty on the government's part if the government was not insisting on accountability, not just for past government officials, but also current government officials.
Right.
I mean, accountability is the bedrock of governance, and the president's mandate is to ensure that there is accountability across the spectrum of government, whether previous government or current government. The point I've made, and I believe the point several pundits have made, is how you go about it. So once it is done in a manner that suggests that it is politically motivated or that it is, as I said, teach him a lesson, then we have a problem. I mean, if Chairman Wontumi, there's grounds or suspicion, I mean, I don't know why he was arrested. I don't know why he's been investigated. The Attorney General has come out to give us snipers of it.
Right.
I believe all of us will have no difficulty whatsoever in associating ourselves with the government's quest to insist or ensure accountability. It is just how it is done. And I think in the case of Chairman Wontumi, I want to believe that the way he was handled and the way he was treated is one that I believe is absolutely undesirable.
What about the matters relating to the former finance minister and the OSP and the way the OSP is going about it? The finance minister is not available to answer questions. In fact, the OSP says that they're not even looking forward to ask me. They are looking forward to arrest him and charge him. And he's simply not available.
You know, well, I have to give this disclosure. The OSP was my criminal law lecturer when I was in law faculty.
Okay.
You know, and he taught me criminal law very well. Let me put it that way. And I don't know. I mean, if I ever get opportunity to interact with him, I may pose this question to him, which is that, do you require the physical presence of an individual in order to investigate a person?
It says he's seeking to arrest him. He can't do so via video conferencing.
Why? Why do you have to arrest him? I mean, he can be investigated without being arrested. He can be prosecuted in absentia and all of that. But I don't even think we should get there. I don't think the OSP and the former finance minister should get there. I honestly think that if there is enhanced communication between the former finance minister's team, legal team, and the OSP, they can come to some compromise, because we have all been told of the health condition of the finance minister, and I have no reason to doubt that. And if it is indeed on health grounds, which is the reason why he's unable to come, which I believe to be so, and the OSP's desire to proceed with his mandate and his work, they can have some engagement to come to some compromise or consensus as to how to go about this. I'm not too sure I believe the brouhaha can be avoided.
Okay. Now let's spend some time. I've seen so many questions. I will share with you pretty soon, because a lot of people appear to have so much interest in the conversation, especially you as well. But yesterday, also on Monday, you know, there's this man in motion. I don't know whether you were there at the KMPC Hotel. President Mahama made the point that moving forward, importers of excavators will require official permit. We've also heard from the DVLA CEO that excavators must now go through registration process so that they can identify those who brought them into the country. All sit in a broader plan of government to deal with the issue of illegal mining. We led this sector for 4 years. Do you think this will work? Well,
Elton, I've been listening to President Mahama for the past 6 months. And it's quite obvious that illegal small-scale mining is, the fight against illegal small-scale mining seems to be a priority for him. Now, what has happened today is a clear vindication of some of the positions that Akufo-Addo government took and which I had the privilege and honor to lead. One of the major points I made, and I want to repeat it here, that small-scale mining is a very endemic, complicated or complex industry.
Right.
At the heart of it is money. And today, the price of gold has never been what it is today. The price of gold is out of the roof, $3,100 an ounce. And it should tell you that it's the most precious commodity you can find in the world.
Absolutely.
Today.
Right.
And that becomes a big incentive, a big attraction for people to get into mining, whether legal or illegal. Number two, I think it's become absolutely evident, and we've been totally vindicated that some of the positions our friends took when they were in opposition, they've jettisoned most of them. And we've all come to the conclusion that they were either born out of political expediency or a lack of appreciation of the menace we're dealing with. I mean, take for example, the government at the time, the opposition at the time said, the government should declare a state of emergency immediately.
All river bodies.
Yes, not just river bodies, all mining districts in Ghana. They said we should declare a state of emergency. And the Trades Union Congress insisted on that. The Catholic Bishops' Conference insisted on that. The Christian Council insisted on that. The NDC in opposition said if they were voted into office, they would declare a state of emergency immediately. 6 months down the road, a state of emergency has not been declared. You know that?
Right.
Okay. The NDC, at the time said the real effort to fight illegal small-scale mining should be to arrest and deal with the patrons, the macos, the leaders of the syndicates, the politically connected people. We all know today, and I think if you are an investigative journalist, you're a man about town, you know what's happening in Ghana. If you put your ears on the ground, you can ask any of your investigative journalists. The group of people who are out there in the forest reserves of our country, across our country, who have taken the view that our party is now in government and therefore we have taken over to mine indiscriminately, and the political involvement is even more as we speak today.
Right.
The state of illegal small-scale mining is worsened as we speak today. Now, I'm not about to be too judgmental on the government at this stage, or even on the minister responsible for lands and natural resources, because I know what it means to deal with this matter. I was there for 4 years, and he's just taking office.
And how difficult was it? Maybe I can ask you on a personal note. How difficult was it in leading this fight?
Very difficult, extremely difficult. And the reasons I'm giving you is what makes it very difficult. Is money, is complicated, it's endemic. There are all kinds and manner of people involved, and it's very, very difficult. And as I say, the minister has been there for just 3 or 4 months, and it will be unfair to begin to criticize him and to begin to pass judgment on him. But what has become absolutely evident as we speak today is that a lot of the things our friends said when they were on the other side, they've been in government, and we've all seen that it is impossible for them to be able to walk the talk. Take the example of excavators. Okay? The president says we require permits moving forward.
Right, to import.
I'm saying to you now and here that the law as it stands today is that you cannot import an excavator without permit. So you can't. That's the law. The law is called the F-Moving and Equipment Law, so LI, 1 LI. That is the law. And when I was minister, even when large-scale mining companies like Newmont, Goldfields, you name them, had to import excavators for large-scale mining, they had to write to me as Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. I had to certify that these are mining companies who are going to use these excavators for legitimate, legal mining operations, and forward it to the Minister for Transport. And the Minister for Transport has to give a permit before these excavators are imported into our country. Yes, the president is right that excavators continue to be the biggest problem in our country. And yes, he's right to say that we have one of the largest pool of excavators
in Africa.
In Africa. There's no two ways about that, especially if you look at the number of excavators vis-a-vis the construction portfolio of our country, road constructions and the rest. We do have an excess number of excavators in Ghana. all because of illegal small-scale mining. But the point I make, most respectfully, is that there's sufficient legislative mechanism which requires permitting before excavators are imported. But the question is not about putting in new laws. It's about enforcing.
No, but so the issue is that even though the law may exist, it is also possible that a lot of excavators came into town without going through the permit regime.
Well, if that is the case, fine. And if it's the case of putting in additional measures to regulate the importation of excavators, I will have no difficulty with it. But I'm saying to you that there is already a law and there's already a regime, a legal regime framework which requires that permits are acquired before excavators are imported into our country. That's a fact. And it's also a fact that illegal small-scale mining is worsened. It's a fact. There is a certain culture of impunity which is creeped into the sector. We wish the president well. We wish the minister well. We will all will them on, and whatever we can do to help, we will do so. But what has become clear today is that this menace was not an Akufo-Addo creation, was not an Akufo-Addo problem, and that the Akufo-Addo government did its best in dealing with this matter. It requires a multifaceted, all-encompassing national effort to deal with it. And if the president is going to take on that path, we will all...
Is it the case that the regime, whether present or former, it's always difficult to deal with party people who are involved in this illegal trade?
Well, that is
because sometimes I'm sure that you may have the evidence, but because of the personality involved, it's always difficult to act.
That is one of the problems. I never had that situation. I never had a situation where there was a party person involved in illegal small-scale mining that I turned a blind eye to. We dealt with it indiscriminately. The police CID. We know we burnt excavators.
I do.
Of the National Women's Organizer, and there was a big hula baloo about it in our party.
A lot
of things. Even though subsequently the company made a case which we looked into and all of that. So I never had that kind of situation. But yes, there is a issue.
The CID statement on Wontumi says that he was undertaking mining in forest reserves without authorization. He polluted water bodies. He didn't even have the requisite licensing to undertake mining. And this obviously happened under your watch.
Well, Chairman, Wontumi's matters are under investigations. I will not comment on that. Let's wait for the outcome of the investigation.
So this war cannot be won without everybody getting together.
Yes, it cannot be won without everybody getting together. And it can be won by continuing, okay, and in some cases, ramping up the measures which have been put in, and additional measures, which deals with all the components of it. The enforcement part of it is important. And I've heard a lot of enforcement these days. I've heard these number of excavators have been arrested, seized.
Now they say you must even register them with DVLA.
Yeah, these number of people have been arrested, and that. Look, my friend, my brother, do you know there was a time small-scale mining was banned altogether in Ghana? Right. You know that? You know there was a time when we rolled out the policy of decommissioning excavators, which essentially meant burning excavators. And which
I remember your first briefing at the Jubilee House when you assumed the office as Lands and Natural Resources Minister, and the directives that you provided.
Yes, which generated a lot of controversy. We did all that, and yet we did not leave office having dealt with illegal small-scale mining conclusively. We did not. So what I'm saying is, let's eat humble pie. Let's accept that some of the things we said and did in respect of illegal small-scale mining, perhaps, look, somebody will say it was a politics. It's part of Ghana's problem. I'm not sure that should be our attitude. This is a national issue. This is a menace, a canker. It's destroying our river bodies. It's destroying our landscape. It's destroying our forests. It's destroying the very fabric of our society. And if we continue the way it is, we will not have a country called Ghana in the long run. Let's all come together and deal with this.
I was coming to ask the advice you would give Emmanuel Amakufibua, your colleague in Parliament, who is now leading the sector. What advice, I mean, because you've been there before, what would you tell him to achieve some results, if any?
Look, the enforcement mechanisms are all very important. The deterrence is important. The clamping down.
But the law is there.
Clamping down illegal small-scale miners is absolutely important. but you also require some serious capital investment in promoting legal small-scale mining as an alternative to illegal small-scale mining. Very important. When I was minister, I heard, for example, the point being made that ban small-scale mining. The question today, are they prepared to ban small-scale mining? I'm not sure they will even contemplate it. Because as you know, the president has told us that gold proceeds, the sale of gold proceeds for the first 4 or so months in this year is accrued some 2.87 billion United States.
Almost $3 billion.
And that is what is the mainstay, that is the anchor holding the Ghanaian economy today. So the government will not contemplate banning small-scale mining, and I will not quarrel with them for not contemplating that. But if you put in place lawful small-scale mining, and those who are interested in mining find it attractive to move from illegal small-scale mining to lawful small-scale mining, which is why we had the community mining schemes, okay, which is why we had some of the large-scale mining companies ceding off some of their concessions for community mining schemes. And I inaugurated and commissioned so many of them across the country. In some places where I commissioned them, they employed about 2,000-3,000 people who were involved in legal, lawful, well-regulated small-scale mining, which had regard for the environment. I'm happy that at least where we find ourselves, there cannot be any serious national debate or disputation as to the pathway for dealing with illegal small-scale mining, vis-a-vis the fact that it requires a non-partisan, cross-sectorial, cross-stakeholder effort in dealing with small-scale mining. The chiefs, local political leaders, as in DC, assembly people, political parties, civil society, media, security services, all of us have a role to play in dealing with small-scale, but it will require leadership. That leadership must come from the president and the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources.
We've got some 15 minutes more to spend with you. Let's talk about party matters. Now, the MPP, after the defeat in the last election, is embarking on a series of measures to revitalize the base of the party. There's this thank you tour, as far as you are concerned. Even though you are yet to attain the age where you can run for the presidency, but you are very experienced.
I like that.
Yes,
I like that
exactly.
bit.
Exactly. Very experienced.
Not the experience.
You are yet to get there. You will get there. But are you happy with the way the party is going about in terms of galvanizing the base ahead of 2028, for example?
Look, where we are as a political party, I've heard a lot of commentary and a lot of anxiety and concern and worry. All of those are legitimate and grounded. But what the MPP is going through today is not totally unusual. When political parties lose elections, you definitely, inevitably, will have to go through the phase we are going through.
Right.
In 2001, when the NDC lost the 2000 elections, it almost even was some sort of an embarrassment to be seen in an NDC t-shirt, if you want. The likes of Haruna Idrisu, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, the Minister for Education, were those who came out of student politics and came youth organizers, and so many others who began to work for the NDC to become attractive again. In 2008, when the MPP lost, you had all the turmoil, which occasioned, which became the lot of the MPP. You recall the Congress at Trade Fair when we amended our constitution to expand the electoral college and the issues which were associated with it. And when the NDC lost in 2016, in their case, it was even a certain president who lost in 2016. And you had the Kosiboche report and the leaks and what happened and what did not happen. And let us all be truthful to ourselves. In 2017, if anybody has said to a political expert that President Mahama will transition from that defeat of 44%, and the MPP garnering almost 170 seats to win a landslide elections in 2024, I believe somebody would have said, look, say that to the Marines.
Right.
You know, I remember very well on the election night of 2016, a very senior figure of our party making the point, and I was present, that we have changed the political map of Ghana, that there's been a seismic change in that, because when the seats kept coming, this particular constituency, MPP has won for the first time, here MPP has won for the first time. One would have said, look, this is the end of the NDC, or is the end of President Mahama, you know. But what has happened to us, what happened to the party in 2024, we are never to sweep it under the carpet, and we are never to behave as ostriches and bury our heads in the sand and say that nothing happened. Something dramatic, something catastrophic happened to the MPP in 2024. But then again...
So some say the economy was to blame, the management of it, the internal issues, and all those issues.
You lose elections based on several factors. And I am to look forward. I am not to look backwards. I look backwards to take lessons.
Right.
And therefore, I'm not going to get involved in blame game. I mean, this person did that, that person did that. When you lose elections, it will be as a result of multiple reasons. And the responsibility for that will be a collective responsibility. It will not be an individual's responsibility. And so I will say it is a collective responsibility of all of us in NPP that put us in a position where we lost the election in the manner that we did. Now, having said that, look, a lot that is happening today about the MPP and the rest will all subside, God willing, when we go through our internal processes of electing national executives and the presidential candidate. I am very optimistic that a lot of it will subside and the party will regroup and rally together and put ourselves together to be able to go for the crucial election of 2028.
But despite what appears to be the party rediscovering itself, already we've heard names and we've heard people make the point that they may put themselves for election for the party flag bearers slot. We've heard your colleague, Dr. Brandon Champon, who says that he set up a committee to investigate and to tell him whether he should contest or not. We've heard Kennedy Japan, who says that when the time is up, I'll put myself out there. The former member of parliament for Suhum, Frederick Opariansa, says that Dr. Bawumia may come. Is it what you need now? When you've not dealt with the issues at the base, and then you appear to be dealing with the matter at the top?
Well, I'm not too sure that the matters are mutually exclusive. I think they all come together. They move in unison, which is that the party has set up a committee to investigate the reasons for our defeat and the circumstances which led to the results we got in 2024, led by the very respected Professor Michael Quay. The committee is presented its report, and the report is in the bosom of the General Secretary of the party. The General Secretary and his leadership are studying the report, and they are implementing some of the recommendations of the report presented by Professor Michael Quay. A lot is happening within the party in terms of reorganization, realignment, regrouping. All of that is going on. The process of electing national executives is all part of the reorganization of the party. And eventually, the process to elect a presidential candidate is also part of reorganization. And indeed, once we get to the point where we've gotten national executives elected and presidential candidates elected, all of those will help with the further reorganization of the party and strengthening of the party for election 2028. In the United Kingdom, for example, when elections are held, the very day the results are declared, there is the opening for a leadership contest very immediately, because having leaders, having the right leaders in themselves is a sine qua non for the reorganization of your party and building your party for the electoral onslaught or the elections ahead of you. And that's exactly what the MPP is doing.
This meeting in Parliament, your expectation, I've heard a tall list of things that the majority leader says that the House will consider, including, taking the monopoly from the Ghana School of Law, then allow other faculties to run the professional law program, plus a tall list of things that, Parliament will consider? Your expectation for this meeting?
The strong, high expectations, because a strong minority is a strong democracy.
Right.
And an unchecked government, an unchecked majority is a danger to society. It's a recipe for dictatorship, and we don't want that. We want a minority, no matter how small the minority is, and the question is not the numbers, it's not the quantity, it's the quality. The quality. And the 88 of us in that parliament, led by the Venerable Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin, have a huge responsibility on our shoulders to live up to expectation, to be worthy minority, worthy opposition, which is capable of holding the government accountable and ensuring that the government is light is shed on the workings and business of the government. That is the overarching responsibility of a minority, and that is exactly what the Afenyo-Markin led minority will be doing in this meeting of Parliament.
I've always wondered how it feels like to be member of Parliament for a constituency where the sitting president has roots in.
Has what? Roots?
Yeah, he has roots in. I mean, he has a relationship with Damango. You are the member of Parliament for that.
I wonder how it feels.
Exactly. I wonder how it feels.
It feels Herculean. It feels terrible.
I can imagine the opposition you face on a daily basis in that constituency.
It's a difficult one. You know, first of all, President Mahama was born in Damango.
Right.
I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, sure.
He was born in Damango Catholic Hospital, the government hospital in Damango. His mother is a big figure in that whole enclave, major matriarch, if you want. And the mother's hometown, specific hometown, is Busunu, which is where the mother is buried. So, if you want, his roots in that constituency, that one is deep, well-connected roots across the length and breadth of the constituency. As you know, in the previous election, the just ended election. Yeah. In fact, beginning of 2020. The 2020.
You took it from Adamu Tawakilu.
Yes, he beat me. President Mahama beat me, and he beat Adamu Tawakilu as well. And in the 2024 elections, he beat me again by a wide margin, and he beat Adamu Tawakilu. In fact, if all the people who had voted for President Mahama had voted for Adamu Tawakilu, I will not be in Parliament today. So yes.
So what's the magic? I mean, what are you doing that the people look beyond NDC and then vote for you?
President Mahama is a towering figure there. Maybe I go to plead with him, maybe.
And then finally, I mean, yesterday, the Asante paid a courtesy call on the president. I saw you in the pictures. How's Nana Akufo-Addo enjoying retirement?
Oh, he's doing very well. I see him almost on a daily basis. And I think yesterday's visit by the Asantini was really gracious. And it actually is a testament of Asantini's towering stature and image and leadership and all of that. And clearly, he's a man, far above politics, above partisan politics. As you know, he came to congratulate President Mahama, pay a courtesy call on him, and he visited President Akufo-Addo in his home and did same to President Kufuor.
Right.
I think it was a very, as you know, President Akufo-Addo and Asantini, the King, His Majesty Asantini, go way back. So they get on very well. And it was a very lovely day yesterday. We had a good time together.
All right. And your final words are people, as we take leave of us.
Well, my point is just to say to our party people, for us to close our ranks behind the leadership of our party, behind Chairman in Team and General Secretary
Justin
Kodia, and the rest, to will them on, support them in the work they are doing. Difficult times, we have our differences, we have huge challenges. It can be very demoralizing, no two ways about it. But we should also always remember that our party was founded and nurtured and built in adversity and in difficulties. And the MPP will always bounce back strongly. So if we support our leaders and we close our ranks, we'll always have our differences. There's no two ways about that. And we don't have to be friends to work together. We will step on each other's toes. But what is important is that the interests of the MPP should override all other interests. And God willing, ultimately, we will elect our national executives, elect our presidential candidate, and whoever it will be, we will rally behind the person to secure victory under God for the new Patriotic Party in 2028.
Thank you so much for coming through. Samuel Abu Jinapor is the Member of Parliament for Damango in the Savannah region, also the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee in Parliament. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take a short break and return with other stories here on The Pulse.